Hebrews chapter number 10 in your Bibles, we'll be starting and looking at verse 32. And in the verses before Hebrews 10:32, we see a bunch of different things, but one thing that they talk about is persevering faith. Persevering faith. In other words, consistent faith. Faith that cannot be shaken. Faith that cannot be taken. Not just saying that we follow Jesus, but actually living a life that follows Jesus. How many know it's one thing to say that you follow Jesus? It's completely different to actually follow Jesus. And so he talks about persevering faith, but then it says, starting at verse 32, remember those earlier days after you had received the light, when you endured in a great conflict full of suffering. When you endured. When you endured. See, being a follower of Jesus does not mean that you are immune to pain. It doesn't mean that life is easy. It doesn't mean that all the struggles are gone, that you never have a struggle. It just simply means that we do endure. Being a follower of Jesus doesn't mean that you have to just stand up and say, it is what it is, whatever it is, it is. No, it's just saying I'm going to endure whatever it is that I'm facing. Goes on and says, verse 33, sometimes you were publicly exposed to insult and persecution. At other times you stood side by side with those who were so treated. You've suffered along with those in prison and joyfully accepted the confiscation of your property because you knew that you yourselves had better and lasting possessions. Hold up. Please do not miss this. It says that they joyfully allowed their things to be confiscated. It says that they had things in their life, part of the suffering that they endured, part of what they had to put up with, part of all these things was having their things confiscated. In other words, people were taking things from them that did not belong to them. And it says that they joyfully endured in this moment. They joyfully received this. How? Because they knew that they had better and lasting possessions that were to come. So they joyfully gave up with this moment. Now, I don't know about you, but some of us are still holding grudges for somebody who owes us $20 from 10 years ago. Right? Christians, we're soft these days, right? We're a little petty these days, myself included. It's like, hey, I remember that $20 that I let you borrow, that wasn't a gift, I let you borrow it, or that you just took out of my wallet because you needed the money and I didn't have. You took that thing. But back then they say no. They allowed all of these things to be confiscated, taken from them, and they joyfully endured it because they knew that what was taken was not as great as what they were headed to. They knew that what they had lost on this earth was not anything compared to where they were headed. So they joyfully allowed these things to be taken. In verse 35, it says, so do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. This implies that they have confidence now, and it also implies that it cannot be taken. They have confidence that cannot be taken. The only way that it will leave is if they give it up. Says you need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he had promised. You need to persevere. You need to persevere. It doesn't say you should persevere. It doesn't say you might persevere. It doesn't say if you feel like it, you persevere. It just says you need to persevere. You need to persevere. You need to continue to go forward. And here was my thinking this week. I see that God says we need to persevere. I see that God tells us to persevere. I see that he calls us to that. But my question is, how? How? Like, have you ever been that way before? Have you ever felt that way in your life? Like God, I know what you say to do in your word. I know that you say to push through. I know that you say to go forward. I know that you say to persevere in this moment. But God, how do I persevere? With everything going on around me, with everything that I'm experiencing, with everything that I'm seeing in the world today, God, how do I persevere? How do I muster up the strength to continue to keep believing? How do I muster up the strength to continue to keep trusting? How do I persevere when I'm looking at everything I'm looking at, when I'm experiencing everything that I'm experiencing, when I look around the world and nothing that was familiar when the clock struck midnight in 2020 still feels familiar? How do I continue to persevere when everything around me seems to be shaken? God, how do I stand unshakable? How do I stand strong? How do I stand with my head held high when everything else around me seems different? When it seems like a struggle, when it seems like every constant day is a battle. Every day it's something new. And it's this and it's that, and I've got to log off Facebook because I can't look at it anymore. Can't take it anymore. God, with all these things, how do I stand? How do I persevere? How do I push through? And the answer is in verse 32. It said, remember. 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 Remember that this might be different. This might not be what you're used to. This might not be what's familiar, but it's not the first time you've had to go through a battle. This might feel a little uncomfortable. It might feel as if you're close to shaking, as if you don't know how you can go. But it's still the same God working in your life in the midst of this that was there the time before when you didn't think you could go further. The time before when you didn't think that you would be able to find the answer. It's the same God here now working on your behalf as it was then. Remember what God said. This I call to mind, therefore I have hope. Because of God's great love, I remember who God is. Even though it looks different, I've been here before. I've faced struggles before. I've faced challenges before. I've faced uncertainty before. But I've seen this before. May have looked different, but I've seen it before. So this morning I want to talk to you on this subject. I've seen this before. Let's pray together. God, we thank you for today. And I just thank you, Lord, that we have the opportunity to gather in this place and online today. And Lord, I pray that in these next few moments that you would help us to have hearts that are open to hear from you. Help us to have hearts that are open to receive from you. Lord, I pray that you would help us not to just listen and to go out and continue to do the same thing, continue to handle things the same way. But God, I pray that you would help us to have open ears. And Lord, I pray that you would help none of us to see or hear from me. But God, may we see and hear from you today. May we find our hope not in a person or in a thing, but in you and you alone. And we thank you for it. In Jesus' name. Everybody said? Amen. Now, as I've gotten a little bit older, as I've kind of grown and gone on with life, I've started to see something familiar that maybe you can kind of relate to. I've started to see that the places that I grew up around, that I don't live there anymore, I can go there, and even though it's the same place, it looks different. Anybody ever noticed that before? Like you can go somewhere, like if you grew up there, or maybe you last time you saw it was a year ago. Down the street from mine in Nicole's house, they're building something. We don't know what. We're trying to figure it out. I told her I thought it was a Dollar General, but then it turns out it's not a Dollar General because there's one like half a mile down the road. So we're trying to figure it out. And every day we come home, it's the same area, but it looks different because they're building so fast. It's amazing how you can go to the same place and it look completely different. And it's like I've been here and I know this, but it doesn't feel like what I remember it feeling like. And last week, Nicole and the boys and I, we went to have dinner at the house of somebody from here in the church. And on our way there, Nicole kept saying, she was like, I feel like I've been on this street before. She asked me what the name of the street was, and I was like, Waze says that it's such and such. I don't know. I'm just following GPS. But she said, I think that my Meemaw and Granddaddy, they grew up around here. I think that their house is somewhere around here. And then we rounded this corner, and we come up on this house that's sitting there, and she's like, oh, no, I don't think that's it. But we keep driving, and then there's a school. She's like, oh, I remember that school. Y'all, it's just an old school building. Like, don't they all look the same? Like, you know what I mean? The short little buildings, like brown brick, that's what it was. So I was like, okay, maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. It looks like all schools to me. They all look the same. And so we went to dinner, had an awesome time. I had to show this family how you properly eat chicken wings. because they thought that like you eat like 10. And I was like, no, if you're going to eat chicken wings, you have to at least eat 30 because otherwise there's no point in eating them. So we eat these chicken wings. We get in the car to head home later that night, put into the GPS where we're going to the house, and it takes us back the same way that it brought us. But this time, Nicole's on the other side of the road. She's looking the other side of the street. And on our way back, she's like, we turn onto this road, and she says the name of the street, and she says it again, and she says it again, and she's like, this sounds so familiar. I think I've been here before. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she yells, babe! And I kid you not, I almost ran off the road. I was like, you know what I mean? Because, like, guys know what I'm talking about. Like, when your wife yells something, you're like, you got to react, because if you don't and something bad happens, they're going to try to say, I told you so. But if you know that it's probably not going to be anything major, but it's still just a trigger in you. So I, like, almost run off the road. Nicole's car has this little feature thing where if you drive kind of erratic for a little while, it will tell you, pop up and say, consider taking a coffee break. And I'm like, no, you consider taking a coffee break. You try driving, and your wife yells at you. You know what I mean? So I'm driving. She yells, babe. I almost wreck. Once I finally get my wits about me, I'm like, what? And she said, there's Meemaw and Granddaddy's house. And she points to it. And I'm at a complete stop in the middle of the road because I'm just freaked out. I thought I was about to hit like a squirrel or something. I really probably would have kept going. But I didn't know what was going on. And so she points to it and she says, Meemaw and Granddaddy's house. And then she says this. She said, they painted the shutters and they've done some landscaping, but that's their house. She said, it looks different, but that's their house. I'm sure of it. I know that's their house. And I've been here before, and I began to realize that even though everything kind of looked different than it did when she was a kid, she had actually been there before. And the first thing I need you to see this morning and understand, when you begin to feel as if you're going to be shaken, when you begin to feel as if you're going to fall, when you begin to feel as if you don't know how you're going to handle it, you got to remember, I've been here before. I've been here before. It said in verse number 32, remember those earlier days, those easier days. One thing I noticed having sons that are so little is life is so easy for them. They get to eat, be fed. They get to go to the bathroom and not do anything about it. We handle all of it. They don't have a care in the world. If we try to get Judah to clean up something, we give him candy for it. You know, like he doesn't just have to work just to work to be able to pay the bills. He works and then gets candy for it. So it's so easy in the earlier days. But it says, remember those earlier days after you had received the light, when you endured in a great conflict full of suffering. You were in a great conflict full of suffering. Remember those earlier days. Remember when you endured. Remember the moment that you endured something similar to what you're experiencing right now, to something similar to what you're enduring right now. Did it look different? Maybe. Did it feel different? Maybe. Did it have different circumstances? Maybe. Did it involve different people? Maybe. But it still was a moment that you were able to endure. It still was a moment that God came alongside of you and helped you through when you didn't think that you were going to make it. And what the enemy tries to get us to do is get tunnel vision on what we're experiencing right now so that we forget what came behind us. We forget what God already brought us through. We're so good at just leaving the past in the past, and to some degree you need to, but never allow the past and the lessons learned and the breakthrough that God had in your life and the moment that he helped you endure before be lost in the abyss of the past. But remember the times that God helped you endure. Remember the times that he brought you through. Remember the times that you didn't think you were going to make it, that you thought you were going to shake down, that you thought you were going to fall, and God came alongside of you and helped you. I've been here before. This isn't the first time I've had to suffer. This isn't the first time I've faced a challenge. I've been here before. So I say, I've been here before. Online, type it in the comments. I've been here before. I've been here before. Remember when you endured. The very fact that you had to endure something means that there was something for you to endure. The very fact that something had to be endured means there was something that was there for you to endure. And we've all had things that we had to endure. We've all had things that we had to go through. We've all had things that we had to make it through. We've all had things. Some of us, even right now, are having to endure some things. Some of us, even right now, are having to push through some things. We're having to make it through some things. How many of you would be honest and admit that when coronavirus started back in February or March, you did not think that it would still be here in June? I mean, can I be honest for a moment? I didn't. Nicole was like, do we want to buy fabric masks? And I said no, because we'll just use the ones from the hospital, because by the time the order got in, coronavirus will be over. Joke's on me, because it's been another 20 weeks. Feels like, I don't know, I'm probably exaggerating, but it's been a lot. But we're enduring. We're enduring. And so many of us, we have to endure so many things. Some of us even now, we're enduring stuff. We're enduring pain. We're enduring heartache. We're enduring unfair treatment. We're enduring all this stuff. But we're enduring. It does not matter who you are. Doesn't matter how saved you are. Doesn't matter how perfect you may feel. We've all had to endure at some point or another. And our inability to grasp this, our inability to acknowledge this, is what I believe is one of the greatest things that is holding the church back. Our inability to acknowledge that we've all had to endure some stuff, that our lives haven't been perfect, tiptoeing through the tulips, as Dad used to say, all our lives, but that we've had to endure some things. But we like to pretend that everything's perfect and everything's always been perfect, and I've always had my act together, and my family has always been happy, and everything's perfect. And so you have people who are looking to someone who can help them through, but we're not there to help them through, because all we're doing is showing them how they need to be perfect. And how if their life isn't perfect, are you really following Jesus? Because if your life was perfect, then I'd know you're following Jesus, because if your life looked like mine. We're not willing to let people see that just last night, before coming to church on Sunday, the reason we had to come into the building was because we were weeping on our pillow, because we just needed a touch from God. We just had to get there. But it's okay, because we're going to come to church and we're going to be like, everything is perfect. Post on social media, everything is perfect. And I think it's one of the greatest hindrances to seeing God move, because how can God heal what we won't acknowledge? How can God heal what's broken if we won't acknowledge that there's anything that needs healing? How long will we continue the act? That's what I want to know. I grew up in church. I've been around it a long time. I want to know, how long will we continue the act? How long will we keep pretending as if everything is perfect all the time? It's exhausting. It's exhausting. How long will we continue to go around acting like everything is perfect? One of my favorite memes that I've seen about masks since all this started, and by the way, side note, little rant, Can we just all agree to just stop judging people on whether they wear a mask or not? I mean, can we just if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. I feel like we have much more important things to be having conversations about. I feel like there's a lot more important things for us to talk about than whether or not somebody's wearing a mask. But anyways, I'm just going to, let that go. Has nothing to, somebody's like, where's that in the Bible? It's not. That was Dustin. I'm sorry. Let me get back. One of my favorite memes that I've seen about masks since all this started is the one that says people are complaining about having to wear a mask to church, but they've been doing it their whole lives. And as much of a joke as it is, it's true. It's true. For too long, we've gone around acting perfect. For too long, we've gone around acting like everything is wonderful and everything is okay, like everything is perfect. I wish we would get as passionate of telling other people about Jesus as we are of trying to convince people that we're perfect. I wish we would get as passionate about letting other people know that they need Jesus just like I need Jesus as we are about trying to make them think that I've got my act together when I don't. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. And it's as much of a joke as it is, it's true. We try to act like everything is perfect. But Hebrews 10 says, remember. Remember when it wasn't. Remember when you endured. Remember when you endured. Remember when you pushed through. Remember when you didn't think you were going to make it, and you did. Remember those moments. Facebook has this thing called Facebook Memories that I used to hate. I did, because it reminds you of things from 5, 10, 15 years ago, however long you've been on Facebook. It reminds you of all these things. And I used to hate Facebook Memories because it would remind me of things I wasn't proud of, things I didn't like, things like, wow, what was I thinking with that haircut? Like, that was crazy. Like, all these things I remember when I was skinny, right? Like, all this stuff that you don't want to see. And I used to get so upset because it reminded me of all these things. But the Holy Spirit began to deal with me and to say, instead of being upset about being reminded of these things and viewing them as bad things that you're being reminded of, why don't you view it as a memory of something that you endured and I brought you through? Instead of being upset because you're reminded of something bad that happened in your life that you didn't like, that you didn't want to take place, how about you view it as a blessing because you're still here and you're still standing, and even though that may have been a difficult time in your life, you made it through and you endured. I made it through and I endured. Somebody say, I made it through. I made it through. And I endured. It's no secret that 2020 has been a little bit of a crazy year, a little bit of an off year. And at the end of it, when we get years down the road, some of us are going to look back and we're going to want to pretend that it never even happened. But for me, I want to be able to look back and say, oh yeah, that was some crazy times, but I endured. I endured. I made it through. Son, let me tell you, you don't even know the half of it, but it's okay because we endured. We made it through. Yeah, we had some Sundays where we weren't even able to have church in the building. Yeah, we had some Sundays where it was split and some were in the building, some were only online. But we made it through. We endured. And son, look at what God did in the midst of it all. So when you think that you can't make it, when you think you can't push through, when you think you can't persevere, I want you to look back at what your dad and your mom went through and what this country went through. I want you to see that even though it was difficult, we persevered and we made it through. We made it through. One of the most beautiful conversations I've had over the last couple weeks with one of my friends who's black is telling me about his grandmother who came to him because he's hurting and he was crying one night watching what was happening in our country. And his grandmother came to him and she said, son, let me tell you something. Yes, it's bad, but I've made it through. Yes, it was bad when I was your age, but I made it through, and I'm not going to sit by and watch you give up. I'm not going to sit by and watch you say that it's all just going to be this way. I'm not going to sit by and watch it because I went through so much to get you here, and now that you're here, you can look at what I went through, and you can take the torch and continue to go forward. I persevered, so you can persevere too. I've been here before. Looks different, feels different, but I've been here before. Been here before. Listen to the definition of endure. It says to suffer something painful or difficult patiently. To suffer something difficult or painful patiently. See, I think that last word is the greatest hindrance to us wanting to endure. I think that last word is the greatest thing that causes us to want to give up and quit in the moment. It's having to be patient. It says to suffer something painful or difficult patiently. Something that requires patience means that it takes time. Something that requires you to be patient implies that it's going to be something that requires you to take time. And I don't know about you, but doesn't it feel
like the most painful things are the things that take the most time? Like painful stuff is what takes the most time. I know for me in my life, like I just feel like if it's good, it goes by fast, right? You go on vacation, quickest week of your life. Come back to work and all the work that piled up while you were gone, slowest week of your life. It's painful. It takes more time. If you don't believe me, try planking for 1 minute. Longest minute of your entire life. Just goes by so slow, painfully slow. Pun intended, painfully slow in those moments. Being patient is the hardest part of having to endure. But I've been here before. I've been patient before. I've had to endure before. And if you've done it before, you can do it again. If you've had to push through before, you can push through again. You can make it through, and you can know that you can hold on. You can hold on. That's the next thing I want you to see if you're taking notes, is hold on. Verse 35, it says, "So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded." Do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. I wonder how differently some of our lives would look if we weren't so quick to throw away our confidence. Many of us throw away our confidence at the first sign of an attack. At the very first thing that happens, we throw it away. We are so quick to give up. We are so quick to forget whose we are. Jesus did not just die so that you can make it to heaven. Jesus sacrificed his life on this earth so that you could have power on this earth. He died so that you could be confident. He died so that you could be confident and know that the one who defeated death, hell, and the grave lives inside of you. You would think that it's impossible to not be confident. You would think it is impossible not to have confidence when you have that kind of power living inside of you. But the truth is, it's easy to lose your confidence. It is so easy to lose your confidence. But whenever you lose your confidence, it's because you gave it away. It's never because somebody took it because they can't. It's because you chose to give it away. Whenever you don't have confidence, it's because you made the decision, the conscious decision, to put your confidence in somebody else's hands, to give your confidence away to somebody else. It's a conscious effort. Nobody can take it from you. Nothing can take it from you. No matter how hard they try, they can't. Because Jesus gave it to you. And nobody can take what Jesus gave you in the first place. Nobody can take what Jesus gave you to begin with. But many of us have thrown away our confidence. Here's the good news. If you can throw away your confidence, you can also choose to hold on to it. If you can make the decision to throw it away, you can make the decision to hold on to it. Many of us have given away our confidence because we've put it in all the wrong places and all the wrong things. We put our confidence in our career. We put our confidence in our education, put our confidence in people, in our family and friends. We put our confidence in our bank account. We put our confidence in our degree. We put our confidence in the number of likes on Facebook. We put our confidence in people's perception of us. We put our confidence in all of these places. And it's no wonder that we're weak. It's no wonder we feel like we can't push through and do what God has created us to do. It's no wonder we feel like we can't make it and we can't do it because we gave away our confidence. We put it in all the wrong things, put it in all the wrong stuff. So now that that's gone, we've lost our identity. If you put your confidence in people's applause, they will take it with them when they turn on you. If you put your confidence in trying to make everybody happy, if you put your confidence in everybody loving you, I promise you, I feel like I'm pretty lovable. I'm just going to say, but not everybody loves me. But there's been times when I thought that I had everybody loving me because I was doing all this stuff for them. And the moment I couldn't do what they wanted me to do and they turned their back on me, I began to feel like I wasn't worth anything. Because I put my confidence that God placed in my life, that Jesus paid the price for, in somebody else's hands that did not know how to handle it. If you put your confidence in their hands when they're applauding, just be okay with them taking it for you taking it from you when they leave. Because if they give it to you, if they're the source of your confidence, if they're the place that you find confidence, then the confidence will leave the moment that they do. Hold on to the confidence. Somebody say, hold on. In the chat, in the comments, type in, hold on. Hold on. Those of you joining us online, hold on. Hold on to your confidence. Because the last thing I need you to see is that as you hold on, perseverance leads to promises. Perseverance leads to promises. The last verse I wanted you to see in verse 36, it says, you need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. When you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. Many of us are not seeing what God promised because we're not doing what he said. We're not seeing what God promised in our lives because we're not doing what he said. It said, as you persevere, then you will receive. This is why the enemy brings as many things as he can to try to discourage you and get you to quit and get you to stop and to get you to give up in the middle. Because he knows that if you maintain your confidence, he knows that if you maintain your perseverance, that you will see what God has promised. If you maintain the perseverance, he knows that you will see what God has promised. So the enemy will send as many things as he can into your life to try to get you to give up in the middle. Try to get you to stop in the middle. Because the reality is we start out strong. We start out so strong. But little by little, this happens and that happens and this happens and that happens. And the enemy sends all these things to try to steal our confidence, to try to steal our perseverance so that we stop in the middle. Don't give up in the middle. Don't give up in the middle. If God was faithful then, he'll be faithful now. We've seen this before. It looks a little different, right? But we've seen this before. I've not gone through this battle, but I've faced enough battles with God on my side to know that he'll help me through if I persevere, if I push through, if I continue to trust. We've seen this before. I can't stop in the middle. I remember the time I almost stopped in the middle and I pushed through and saw the victory. I can't stop in the middle now. I got to push through. I got to push through. I got to persevere. This is why perseverance is so important. Because when you persevere, you're too busy moving closer to what God has for you than to even think about giving up. You're too busy going forward than to even think about quitting, than to even think about stopping. This is why you got to persevere, because you're getting closer to what God has for you. And with every step, you're getting closer. And with every movement forward, you're getting closer. I'm talking to somebody this morning who has a promise of owning your own business, but it hasn't happened yet. Somebody who has a promise of being healed, but the doctor said it's not going to happen. Somebody who has a promise of having children, but it's been 5 years and it hasn't happened yet. Keep persevering. Keep pushing forward. Don't quit in the middle. Don't stop in the middle. It's not the first time. It's not the first time I've seen this. It's not the first time I've seen it. And I know if God did it then, he'll do it now. Because he's not a different God. He's the same God now that he was then. And here's the beauty in it. Nothing is new for God. Nothing's new for him. It may be new for you, but nothing is new for God. And even though I've never seen this, I've seen this. I've never seen this exact scenario, but I've seen this attack before. And I know God was with me then, and I know God will be with me now. That's why I persevere. That's why I praise. That's why I worship. That's why I'm unshakable, because I remember the time I almost fell. I remember the time I almost gave up, and God helped me through that. I know he'll help me now. I've seen this before. I've seen this before. Come on, I've seen this before. I've seen this before. And I know if I made it through then, I know if I endured then, that God will help me endure now.